Valvoline Instant Oil Change wants you to breathe out your oil change-anxiety. And breathe in automotive peace. Visit us today.
Breaking news, and this one is almost unbelievable.
Yeah, it's all about new customers at Bet365.
At Bet365, gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to this week's Harness Racing Alumni Show. I'm Freddie Hudson, and I'm here today with Trade Martin, Bob Marks, and Andy Cohen. The Harness Racing Alumni Show is the @1 harness racing podcast in North America. We have sponsorships and advertising spots available. For more information, email rrtrotten@outlook.com or visit ustrots.com. The statements and opinions of our guests are their personal opinions and beliefs, and it does not necessarily represent the opinions of the Harness Racing Alumni Show or of its host.
The Harness Racing Alumni Show with your hosts, Freddie Hudson and Trade Martin.
Joining us today from Hunterton Farms is Steve Stewart. Steve, welcome back to the Harness Racing Alumni Show.
Glad to be back.
Steve, you had a very successful sale. Tell us a little bit about the sale, both the Lexington and the Harrisburg.
Both sales were good. The Lexington sale, we sold nine. To me, it's kind of crazy when you throw out these numbers, but the sale that we had in Lexington, we sold out 90. I believe it was 94 yearlings for, I think, right at we averaged $95,000 for 90, so it was right at $9 million. So to me, it's kind of, in a way, you could call it crazy numbers, but obviously we've done very well over the years producing good racehorses, so I guess we're rewarded in that regard. But Harrisburg, we don't sell as many. We sold, and then unfortunately we had some sick fillies that were not able to attend the sale, but I guess we could pat ourselves on the back, and we've got a pretty good reputation, so we were able to work out things. What I basically did was just work out with trainers and said, you know, they're pretty much well now. They were sick for some of them were sick for one day, and they spiked some temperatures, but it was just really bad timing. They start spiking temperatures about 2 or 3 days, a couple of them, a few days before we shipped the Friday before Harrisburg, and then luckily we did not ship because some of the other ones spiked temperatures over the weekend, you know, right before the sale, but they were down here and hopefully prevented other horses at the sale from getting sick. But we were able to, a lot of people came to us and said, oh my gosh, it's terrible. But, you know, we were able to work out things with people. We more or less just kind of agreed on a semi-price, and then we're going to ship them. Some of them are being picked up today. And we more or less said, just take the yearlings, and we'll stand behind them, and you try them for a couple of weeks. And because they were able to look at the videos, but they were not able to look at the yearlings themselves. And so, but we felt fairly confident that we'll see how it goes, but we feel fairly confident that we'll be able to get them pieced out and get them taken care of. So, and hopefully, and we'll look back, I'm sure, a couple of years from now and say, oh yeah, that was a filly that didn't make it to the sale. So that usually happens that way. Harrisburg was a little bit more challenging. They, you know, the high sold very good. We sold the third highest price yearling in the sale from Mission Brief for Jeff Snyder and SRF, Mr. Lennart from Sweden. They had the sale topper, or the yearling topper of all the sales or whatever in Cadena, the sister, last year, and she performed very well this year. And so they came right back and bought the colt. He's a Walner colt that brought $525,000. And it was always funny. Jeff came back and said, well, I was thinking I was going to have to pay a lot more, which sometimes as a seller you don't want to hear that, but it's nice to hear too in that regard. But then there was some low prices or whatever, so it's they'll have to tweak the sale a little bit, but they'll be fine. But overall, the sales were very good. My comment about the sales has been that we don't need to go up any higher. And you probably don't hear too many consigners say that, but I always worry about the fact that these buyers have to get the money back, and you don't want to run anybody out of the business saying I can't. It's not economically feasible for me to buy these yearlings. And I think the breeders can make money. Not all yearlings, obviously, not all yearlings sell for what you want or what you think you need, but I think if you've got a good product or whatever, there's definitely plenty of money out there for what people perceive as a quality yearling. And quite frankly, if you don't, we're in the same boat. We sold some low-priced yearlings at the sales, and you just have to adjust, and maybe that mare isn't good enough anymore to accomplish it. Most of the time, sometimes it's not just the mare; it's the fact that certain yearlings, certain sires are not popular at the time, and they turn the page. So that's the challenge of a breeder, is that you're deciding. Right now, we're deciding on who to breed to on horses that will not be sold for 3 years from now. So you kind of need a crystal ball a little bit, but it can be challenging, but there's plenty of money out there.
Yeah, Steve, the All-American Standardbred had a dispersal. Could you compare that to the Castleton dispersal?
No, you really can't compare it to that. You can compare it, where you can compare it is, the reason why you can't compare it to Castleton is the fact that Castleton had so many. They probably had 100 mares or whatever, to our Mr. Hertrick probably had 20-some mares or whatever. But, dispersals will make high prices, and in my opinion, rightfully so, because Fred Hertrick has done an excellent job of producing a lot of Captain Albino and a lot of really good horses, Nijinsky and many top horses over the years. And in a way, the way you should look at a dispersal of a successful farm is the fact they've done a lot of work for you. They've whittled it down to where, and he's kind of he's more than a boutique, but not a huge numbers that they would sell every year, and they did extremely well, and it's an opportunity. The one you would compare it to would be White Birch. So when White Birch sold out, they probably had whittled theirs down pretty good to probably in the 20s or so, 20 or 30 mares. And so, and they sold accordingly. We did very, very well. We bought My Little Dragon, and we bought a few other mares from White Birch, and we did the same thing again this past week at All-American.
Now, let's talk a little bit about Kentucky racing. The racing, they're going for fantastic money. Do you see that money growing for the purses?
Yes, it will. There's a couple things that really, it's good for the industry and even better for people that the breeders in Kentucky, is the fact, a couple of things. One is, so I don't know how many years ago, it's always more than you think, but several years ago, 5, 6, 7, whatever it was or whatever, they were able to get instant racing machines, and then at the racetracks, there was probably 1 or 2 racing licenses that had not been used or whatever. They were just sitting there, and the economics of these machines allowed Churchill Downs to start Oak Grove, that has generated really the most money in our there's 3 tracks that we have, and they generate the most at the moment, but they were really kind of the first ones to really get going and do very well, and they draw from Nashville. Then the other track that got going about a year or so ago only is Cumberland Run, and it draws from they're in southern part of the state, and they draw from Knoxville. And so, but there's a couple of things that going forward is in our favor over a lot of states. One of the biggest is that all these racetracks that have these instant racing machines, there is no casino tied to it. All the ownership of the tracks are either the Red Mile, Keeneland, Churchill Downs, and then there's a group of people that own Kentucky Downs. And so we don't have to worry about a casino who needs us to get started, but then they start realizing that they don't want us anymore. We're kind of a headache to them or whatever. But and you just have to make sure that the legislatures in everybody's state decides that, it's important to keep racing going. And that's kind of our job. I was talking to Bob Bonney about the fact that, can you support these guys or whatever? They really support harness racing. And I made the comment back to him. I said, well, how we go forward a lot of times is at our state house and having to lobby and make sure that the new legislators understand how important harness racing and thoroughbred racing is. But the other thing that really helps us is the fact that we're tied with the thoroughbreds. And so we don't have to worry about, and so when you don't have casinos who have more money than we do, going to the legislatures and, getting votes and getting lobbying with their power against horse racing and trying to take some of our money that we're, in my opinion, totally entitled to, that what we're able to do in Kentucky is we just more or less just climb on the back of the thoroughbreds, and they pretty much, more or less, Churchill Downs and a little bit of Keeneland, pretty much they're the big fish when it comes to getting things done in Frankfurt. And so we benefit by, piggybacking with the thoroughbreds. And with Churchill Downs owning our biggest generating track, not the biggest track, obviously Red Mile is the biggest track, but it has the most purse money, but Oak Grove generates the most money for us. So we don't have that problem. And as we've seen, year after year, these machines have not topped out. They continue to grow, and pretty much the reason why is if Freddie Hudson and Steve Stewart walk into Oak Grove or whatever, the first thing, or any casino, they say, okay, here's our card, plug it in or whatever, and you get a free this, free that. It depends on how much you gamble. And so once they do that, then they've got your email, then they send you, something over the thing. So they are able to generate more income as you go forward with these machines, and none of the three tracks have come close to topping out. So they continue to generate more money. So I wouldn't say you're golden, you're never golden, but we're sitting pretty good at the moment with Kentucky racing and the future.
Yeah. Steve, are there any plans to market the tracks to improve the attendance and handles?
It's something that we are working on now in Kentucky there is in the statute, there is money allowed from this money that's being generated to work with promotions. And it's something that we have not done a very good job, like most people, in the fact that you have to be careful when you get money from machines that you don't do your job, which is our job, which is to generate more people coming to the track and whatever. I think that the Red Mile has done a very good job with trying to put other entertainment along with it. They've changed a little bit of the starting time for some of on Sundays. And Gabe Pruitt has done an excellent job with that, and Joe Costa, trying to get more people there. And I think they've done a pretty good job, but we can do better. And the money is there. That's the thing. It's not like it used to be that we could cry poor and say that, and you can get a downward spiral. If you're not generating enough money, then you can't advertise, but that's not our problem. And shame on us if we don't do a better job.
Is there any plans in Kentucky to market to like TV audiences to promote harness racing?
That I don't know. It's something that I think that we need to look at. It's pretty. Red Mile is one of the few tracks that it's an in-town track. Most of the tracks are not, and we need to just do a better job of, we're basically right next to a huge university, in the University of Kentucky in Lexington. So, the other ones probably have a little bit more challenging because they're really kind of away from very many population centers. the ones, and then basically they did that because there's no casinos and there's really not any gambling in Tennessee. So obviously they put those tracks down near the border of Kentucky to generate, but where they are in Kentucky is a very low population area. But I know that Oak Grove and them have concerts and things like that probably generate money for the track and not so much for, attendance. But we just have to do a better job. And I think the industry does too, all of us. I don't think we can point fingers at anybody. We need to point our fingers at ourselves.
I have one more question for you. Do you have any plans to pursue your director spot with the USTA?
Well, I have to wait for another opportunity, and I failed last year in running, and I don't know whether I could have done a better job. I don't think so, but yes. Well, all I would say is that I'm willing to serve and try to serve, and if the constituents elect me, I'll do my best and more or less try to do the right thing for everybody. So to answer your question, if the opportunity presents itself, I'm here. And we've done a little bit. I was lucky to be on the grading system, and that's really going to be an interesting thing to watch, where Mark Lowe and Russell Williams, the president of the USTA, really kind of pushed it, and it's going to happen next year. And there was about 11 of us, Dave Reed and Steve Jones, but Mark was kind of the one that carried the water and did most of the legwork or whatever. But we've now graded all the races, and now we'll get to sit back and listen to some people maybe complain. Obviously, it's always fun to listen to different opinions, but we kind of had a pretty good group of people in different, genres of the industry to come up with, and there was plenty of arguments and what about this, what about that, but so I've been able to do that kind of stuff, and which I enjoy. I think that doing what we've done, Hunterton's been here for almost 45 years, so we've kind of seen people come and go and seen what works and doesn't work, and the grading system is something that was, ridiculous that we hadn't done it before. But you got to take your hat off to Russell Williams because, being the president of the USTA, he carries the most water or whatever to get it across the finish line. And it's going to happen, and it'll show up. I don't know whether I guess it'll start with the racetrack being able to advertise the Grade 1 Hamiltonian. And it's so funny that you hear that in all the thoroughbreds, the Grade 1 Travers Stake or the Grade 1 whatever, and now we get to finally do that, and I think that it's long overdue, and I'm glad it's happened. And then the next thing you'll see is it'll be in the pedigrees on the yearling pages. So that will be, and in the USTA on the pathway and stuff like that. I think they're going to go back. They're not going to go back that far. I think they're going to go back 3 or 4 years. So kind of the early, you're not going to see something from the Grade 1 winning Fox Stake that was 40 years ago. And that's kind of what I had been saying was that, that helps you as we go forward, that races like the Fox Stake would have been a Grade 1 race when it was racing back in the day. And if it shows up in a pedigree, it doesn't really give information that would help you from, maternal lines that go back, 3 or 4 generations.
Hey,
so
Bob, did you want to add anything here?
No, I think Steve has covered everything. Certainly, when it comes down to graded stakes, I remember my old boardwalk days. That was back in the 80s. We used to come out and wonder why we don't have graded stakes, because we do. Because, whichever the most people, races that people want to win, like the Meadowlands Space or the Hamiltonian, those are definitely Grade 1s. And there are other races that people don't necessarily care about that much. And, they're Grade 2s and Grade 3s. They have to be that way.
You're right. And what it does is it just separates I use the fact of the Academy Awards. You give out a reward, you reward greatness, and people are able to say, So there's only one winner of the Best Actor, but everybody gets to say in their, when they describe an actor or whatever, nominated, and so that means something. And you should have, right now, obviously we have, Oshawa does a great job of, Horse of the Year and that kind of stuff, but there's a whole lot of other things you can do. And then we had to be very, very conscious of the fact that an awful lot of our money is being generated at the state level. And so how do we do that? So we came up with R's. So there's R1, R2, R3, and there's grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. And I think that they've done a very good job, and I think that you're going to see where I believe some of the other people argued with me, but I feel like some of these tracks are, when they realize what the levels they are to be grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, that they'll throw a little bit more money at certain ones to make them grade 1. And so I think that raises that just helps every horseman when it comes to that. So I think there's a lot of positives, and I don't see a whole lot of negatives. That's for sure, especially by doing the restricted for horses that more or less just race in Ohio, and they make a lot of money, so they should be recognized as being the best of that state.
All right. Well, Steve, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
As usual, it's always fun to, as everybody who knows me, I don't have a problem in talking, that's for sure.
Now, over to Andy.
Thanks, Fred. Finally, good news for David Siegel. We're going to actually publish the interview I've done with him over the past couple of weeks. I've had to bump it the last couple of times because we had breaking news on the Keeping Pace podcast. But this Monday, David Siegel and he said some really interesting things. I think folks will really appreciate hearing from him. He's been away from the USTA leadership now for, 6 months or a year. That's it. Have a good weekend. Take care. See you, Fred.
Thank you, Andy. The Harness Racing Alumni Show is the #1 harness racing podcast in North America and is listened to worldwide on multiple platforms, including Spreaker, iHeartRadio, USTrots.com, HarnessLink, Google Podcasts, and many others. To our audience, thanks for listening, and please join us again next week.
The Harness Racing Alumni Show.